Welcome back to the Couch Confessions, everyone. I am Kent, your host, and honestly, I am really excited about today's episode. We have got something pretty fascinating lined up for you. Yes, so today, we are diving into the mind of Wednesday Addams. And when we say diving, we really mean it. Her behaviors, her fears, her relationships, and that very, very complex emotional world of hers. All explored through the lens of psychoanalysis. It's dark, it's interesting, and well, very iconic of Wednesday.
And I'm Vian, your moderator. Now, why does Wednesday matter? Well, she's this iconic character who is emotionally detached, drawn to darkness, and yet incredibly complex. By the end of this episode, you'll hear how her personality, her relationships, and even her romantic choices can be interpreted through some of the most influential psychoanalytic theories.
Alright, so to keep things moving, let me introduce our psychoanalytic experts for today. We have Zell representing Adler, Angel representing Freud, Charles as Erickson, Jai as Horny, and Ceci representing Jung. Thank you all for joining us and welcome to the show.
Hi everyone, thank you for having us.
Let's start with Wednesday's emotional detachment, and when we talk about that, listeners, we are really referring to this cold, distant, almost unshakable demeanor she carries. And the big question here is, guys, what's behind it? Is this a defense mechanism, a response to trauma, or is this simply who Wednesday is at her core?
Right. When we say emotionally detached, we don't mean that she doesn't feel anything, right? We mean that she keeps her emotions tightly controlled. So, let's break this down. Zell, from your Adlerian perspective, what do you think?
Well, from an Adlerian perspective, Wednesday's emotional detachment is deeply tied to her sense of personal significance and coping with social dynamics. Adler emphasized that feelings of inferiority can drive people to develop unique strategies to gain mastery over their environment. So for Wednesday, keeping an emotional distance might be her way of protecting herself from judgment or rejection, which could trigger those feelings of inferiority.
I agree, Zell, but I'd add that this is more than compensation. From a Freudian's perspective, I could say that Wednesday's emotional detachment reflects her ego's defense mechanism, particularly repression, isolation of the affect, and intellectualization. So she experiences emotions, but she disconnects them from conscious awareness to avoid anxiety. Her cold demeanor suggests that intense feeling, such as fear, anger, or attachment, are being pushed into the unconscious. So in Wednesday's case, emotional closeness may activate unconscious fear of loss, dependency, or betrayal. Also, her sharp wit and logical reasoning act as intellectualization, allowing her to analyze situations rather than feel them. So this keeps her in control and protects her ego from being overwhelmed by emotions she does not know how to process safely.
Interesting points. I think Erickson's identity stage is also relevant. She's in the midst of figuring out who she is. Emotional detachment might be her way of experimenting with her identity while staying safe from social pressure.
I agree. In the perspective of Karen Horney's theory, Wednesday's cold, unshakable demeanor isn't simply her personality, nor is it a clear-cut trauma response. It's best understood as a coping strategy that hardened into identity. Horney argued that people manage basic anxiety through patterns of relating to others, and Wednesday consistently moves away from people, relying on emotional detachment, self-sufficiency, and control to protect herself from vulnerability. Her flat affect and resistance to intimacy function as defenses, minimizing the risk of dependence, rejection, or emotional loss. While temperament may shape her introversion, the rigidity of her detachment suggests more than preference. It reflects a neurotic solution to anxiety, where distance feels safer than connection. In this sense, Wednesday's coldness isn't a lack of feeling, but a carefully maintained shield that keeps her inner world secure.
Well, in Jungian psychology, emotions don't need to be performed or be seen by other people to be real. Wednesday's emotional life is internalized and it is being processed privately and is protected from social intrusion. Wednesday does not lack emotions, she just refuses to externalize them. It's not that she can't feel anything, it's just that she does not want to express or show it. And she is conscious of it, so it falls under a defense mechanism and not a trauma response.
Based on all of that, do you think Wednesday's emotional detachment is more about personality or more about protection?
A bit of both. She has innate traits, but they're amplified by her coping strategies.
Exactly, nature and nurture combined.
And anxiety definitely plays a role. From a Hernian perspective, the anxiety driving Wednesday's detachment isn't loud or panicked. It's subtle, controlled, anticipatory. She manages this anxiety by preemptively withdrawing. If she needs no one can hurt her or control her. Her emotional restraint and insistence on self-sufficiency reduce uncertainty and preserve inner stability, allowing Wednesday to feel safe through mastery rather than connection. This isn't fear in the traditional sense, but a chronic vigilance, an unspoken belief that emotional closeness is inherently destabilizing. In that light, Wednesday's composure isn't calmness without anxiety. It's calmness carefully constructed to keep anxiety contained.
Again, from a Jungian perspective, it's a blend of both. But the personality aspect is very real. Wednesday's emotional detachment isn't just a protective shield, it's also an authentic expression of her inner self.
Whew, that was a long topic, but it was really insightful. Hearing all these different perspectives from Adlerian, Freudian, Jungian, and Hornian, it makes things so much clearer. To sum up all what we have landed on, Wednesday's emotional detachment isn't just one thing. It's a complex blend of innate personality, deep-seated coping strategies like repression and moving away from people, and an authentic, conscious decision to process her emotions privately. It's fundamentally about control and self-preservation if we really think it is.
Alright. Moving on to Wednesday relationships with Morticia, because this one's complicated. Is Wednesday rebelling? Is she resisting her mother's legacy? Or is there something deeper going on beneath all of that?
Right. What makes this interesting is that Morticia isn't a harmful parent. So the question becomes, what exactly is Wednesday pushing against? Experts?
Okay, so again, from an Adlerian perspective, Wednesday's rebellion is not a mere defiance. It's a purposeful strategy to assert individuality. Morticia's presence is almost like a living standard that Wednesday feels she must differentiate from. So Adler talked about the inferiority complex, the feeling of being overshadowed by someone else. In this case, Morticia's elegance, charisma, and family authority could easily cast a shadow over Wednesday's sense of self. So every rebellious act, whether it's rejecting her mother's advice, making her own unconventional choices, or adopting a dark aesthetic, is a goal-directed effort to claim autonomy. It's her way of saying, I am my own person. I am not defined by Morticia's expectations or legacy.
Well, I'd suggest that Wednesday's resistance towards Morticia is rooted in unresolved unconscious conflict, particularly within the framework of the parent-child psychodynamics. So, while Freud focused heavily on early relationships, he also believed that tension with parents often resurface during adolescence as internal struggles. So, Wednesday may be experiencing ambivalence, simultaneous love, and resentment towards her mother, because Morticia represents authority, femininity, and emotional expressiveness, all of which contrast sharply with Wednesday's guarded identity. This creates an inner conflict that the ego resolves through reaction formation, like rejecting what she unconsciously feel pressed to become. So there's an element of projection here. So Wednesday may project her own doubts or vulnerabilities onto Morticia, perceiving her guidance as control. So by rejecting her mother, she protects her ego from feeling of inadequacy or fear of being emotionally absorbed.
This aligns with identity versus role confusion. She's testing her boundaries and figuring out who she is, separate from her mother.
Another thing is that she also fears losing autonomy. Morticia's guardians, even if helpful, feels like a threat to her independence. Wednesday's relationship with Morticia reflects a deeply human rebellion shaped by anxiety around autonomy rather than a lack of love. Morticia offers guidance with warmth and certainty, but to Wednesday, the guidance can feel like quiet control, care that edges too close to dependence. In Orn I's terms, this triggers basic anxiety, the fear that closeness will erode her independence and define her before she can define herself. So Wednesday responds by moving away from people, using emotionally restrained sarcasm and self-sufficiency to protect her autonomy. Her resistance isn't a rejection of Morticia as a mother, but of a relational dynamic where love feels like influence and guidance feels like interference. By keeping emotional distance, Wednesday preserves a sense of self that feels uncompromised, even if it means appearing cold. In this light, her rebellion is less about disobedience and more about safeguarding autonomy. Because for her, independence is the only form of safety that doesn't come with strings attached.
In Jungian perspective, Wednesday's action towards Morticia isn't just a teenage rebellion. She's actually figuring out who she is, her own personality separate from her mother's. Morticia represents a model, a legacy, and some traits Wednesday admires, but also wants to define on her own. Her resistance is part of her growing independence, testing boundaries, and discovering her authentic self. In other words, she's not rejecting Morticia. She's just individuating.
Angel, would you say this rebellion could be masking unresolved emotional needs?
Yeah, absolutely. She rejects help even when she needs it because unconscious fears of abandonment and control interfere.
I'd also add that rebellion isn't purely negative. It's an essential step in developing self-identity, which agrees with Cece's Jungian lens or perspective.
Ah, that makes rebellion both defense and personal growth. That's truly fascinating.
Alright, finally, let's talk about Wednesday's romantic choices. Why does she seem drawn to danger like Tyler, yet hesitate when it comes to real emotional intimacy? What's going on there?
Exactly, like she can face danger head on, but when it comes to emotional closeness, she just pulls away. Why does that happen, experts?
Okay, so now looking at her romantic choices, Adlerian theory gives us an interesting lens or perspective. Wednesday's attraction to dangerous or intense personalities like Tyler is not just a random quirk. It's a strategic choice connected to her drive for significance and self-assertion. Adler would say that she unconsciously seeks partners who allow her to demonstrate independence, competence, and social courage. Choosing someone safe, like Xavier, may feel limiting or constraining. To Wednesday, the relationship must provide a stage where she can express her uniqueness and maintain autonomy. Additionally, her fear of intimacy can be seen as a protective measure against potential inferiority or dependency. Being emotionally close exposes vulnerability, and vulnerability can trigger feelings of inferiority. So by keeping distance, she maintains control and self-respect.
Well, from a Freudian lens, I would say that Wednesday attraction to danger, particularly Tyler, can be understood through repetition compulsion. Because dangerous relationship actually allows Wednesday to engage intense emotion while maintaining emotional distance. So they actually activate her unconscious drives to aid, particularly aggressive and instinctual impulses, without even requiring deep emotional vulnerability. So her avoidance of intimacy could suggest the fear of ego dissolution. So true closeness threatens to expose her repressed emotion, making her vulnerable to anxiety. So instead, she chooses relationships that stimulate excitement and conflict, but actually do not demand emotional surrender. So, in this sense, danger feels safer than intimacy because it would keep her unconscious conflicts externalized and controlled.
She's in the intimacy versus isolation stage. Fear of vulnerability keeps her at a distance.
Exactly. She may unconsciously sabotage relationships to maintain control and avoid dependency. Wednesday's attraction to danger, especially to someone like Tyler, feels deeply human when we consider how it protects her sense of control. Danger is intense but impersonal. It lets her feel something powerful without requiring emotional exposure. Horney described how those who move away from people manage basic anxiety by avoiding dependency. And for Wednesday, real intimacy threatens exactly that. Letting someone in would mean meeting them, being influenced by them, and risking the loss of autonomy she relies on to feel safe. Unconsciously, though, she may even sabotage relationships, choosing emotionally unsafe people or pulling away at moments of closeness, just to regain control and avoid dependence. In this way, danger becomes safer for her than love. It keeps her engaged without surrender, connected without vulnerability. She isn't rejecting intimacy because she lacks feeling, but because closeness carries the very anxiety she's learned to guard against.
Wednesday's fascination with danger, like her interest in Tyler, is part of her exploration of the shadow. It's the darker, thrilling side of life that most people avoid. It excites her, challenges her, and helps her understand herself. But when it comes to real intimacy, she pulls back. That's because true emotional closeness requires vulnerability, and she protects her inner world carefully. So she's drawn to excitement and risk, but keeps her heart guarded. Her psyche, which is her mind, emotions, and inner self, it balances her curiosity with self-preservation.
So in short, danger gives Wednesday space for self-exploration, while intimacy feels like a threat to her autonomy.
Exactly.
Alright everyone, before we wrap things up, let's do a quick rapid fire round. Short answers, no overthinking, and let's keep this fun. First question, what would you say is Wednesday's go-to defense mechanism? Go.
I'd say compensation. She overplays her detachment and dark humor to assert control and independence.
I agree, but I'd also point to isolation of the affect. She separates emotion from situations. The classic Freudian move, I would say.
I'd go with avoidance. Avoiding intimacy and emotional vulnerability to protect her developing identity.
I see all your points, but I'd also say, in our perspective, in the Horn Eye perspective, moving against others. Wednesday asserts herself to ward off anxiety, which make her pretty untouchable but also vulnerable to other people.
I agree with all of that. It's giving the same energy as the Jungian defense mechanism, which is emotional detachment.
Perfect. Next one. Which trait defines Wednesday's identity the most?
Her independence. She's constantly defining herself apart from family expectations. It's her way of striving for significance and proving that her identity isn't just an extension of the Addams legacy.
Well, in this case, I would say emotional control, keeping her feelings tightly contained.
Curiosity, especially in exploring dark or unusual interests.
For me, it's definitely autonomy. She wants to do things on her own terms, solving murders, acting on her own. Wednesday struggles with asking for help because she does not believe she needs it and she's already capable without it.
I'd say Wednesday's defining trait is her authenticity. She's unapologetically herself, never performing emotions or bending to social expectations. Being true to herself drives her curiosity, independence, and even her fascination with danger.
Well, that was very interesting answers we got there. And now for the last question. What is one unresolved fear Wednesday has?
Being overshadowed. So, not being seen for who she truly is. So, that fear pushes her to exaggerate her uniqueness so she won't disappear under someone else's influence, especially her mother's.
I think it's emotional exposure, letting someone see the vulnerable parts of herself.
Isolation. Not forming meaningful connections.
Definitely loss of control. Wednesday fears dependency. Again, as I said before, autonomy means everything with Wednesday. Losing this, her autonomy, her control, losing this is something she fears even when she doesn't seem to acknowledge that herself.
Well, as the last one to answer this, in a Jungian perspective, I believe one unresolved fear for Wednesday is losing control. She keeps her emotions and inner world tightly guarded, and the idea of having someone compromising her identity or manipulating her unsettles her. Her detachment and dark humor actually helps her navigate that fear.
Wow, that was fast and honestly really insightful. I love how each of you came with a slightly different angle, but somehow it all connects so well.
Exactly. And that's Wednesday for you. Multi-layered, complex, and fascinating from every perspective.
So, if there's one key takeaway here, is this Wednesday emotional detachment, her rebellion, and her attraction to danger aren't random traits. They are connected, shaped by defense mechanisms, unconscious drives, identity formation, and her process of individuation.
Thank you very much to our experts for these fascinating insights. Next week, we'll explore how family dynamics shape adolescent resilience.
And with that, don't forget to subscribe and join us again next time on The Couch Confessions.